Welcome to Southpod, the first and foremost podcast created to tell the true story of tech innovation in the American South. Southpod is hosted by John Yarian and Stanfield Gray and produced by Dig South Tech Media. Dig South Tech Media is the South's tech hub, the place where leading global brands connect with the most scalable startups. Visit us at digsouth.com and follow us on social media at Dig South. This episode of Southpod was recorded as a part of the Dig South 2020 Virtual Tech Summit. It features Edward Nevraumont, Senior Advisor at Warburg Pincus. Now let's dig into Southpod with Edward Nevraumont.
Welcome to the Dig South virtual stage, Edward Nevraumont, Senior Advisor at Warburg Pincus Private Equity. He was former VP of Marketing at Expedia, running global loyalty programs, and is the author of Marketing BS. Loyalty is not about loyalty, what you didn't know about rewards programs. Take it away, Ed. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Awesome. Thanks, Stanfield. I'm going to go and try to get my presentation to go live, and we can get started. So I'm going to talk about loyalty, or more specifically, why loyalty is not about loyalty. I think there's very few traits in our society that are as fetishized as loyalty. Like to me, like this is loyalty, right? Loyalty equals love. There's nothing marketers love more than the idea that consumers will love their brands. Harvard Business Review talked about this back in 2014. This quote has gone around all over the place. Acquiring a new customer is anywhere from 5 to 25 times more expensive than retaining an existing one. Therefore, you should focus on keeping your existing customers happy. If it's worth 5 to 25 times more than getting a new customer, that's where you should be spending all of your effort, right? So customer retention is much more important than customer loyalty. Customer retention is much more important than customer acquisition. And therefore, you should do things like loyalty programs. You should do things like customer retention programs. You should do things like cross-sell and upsell to further engage your existing customers. Don't spend time trying to get new customers. Try to retain and build on your old customers. I'm here to tell you that that whole line of thinking is complete BS and totally wrong. Acquiring a new customer is anywhere from 5 to 25 times less expensive than retaining an existing customer. I said that. Therefore, but saying that customer retention is more valuable than customer loyalty is wrong. The actual fact is it's reversed. Customer acquisition is much more important. Much more important. Much more important. I don't know how many muches I can throw out there, but the idea that you should be focusing basically everything on customer acquisition, and customer retention should be almost an afterthought. And this is coming from someone who spent my career running customer retention programs. So therefore, and loyalty programs almost always destroy value. And customer retention programs are almost always a distraction. I know this is not the standard thinking in the marketing world, but I'm going to spend the next 20 minutes or so trying to convince you of these facts. And so the question is, can Ed do it? Am I going to be able to be successful? Let's dive in and find out. Start on a personal note. So a couple of years ago, I flew from Seattle, Washington, where I live, down to Phoenix, Arizona, on a Saturday morning. And on Saturday afternoon, I flew back from Phoenix, Arizona, back up to Seattle. I did that entirely because I wanted to maintain my diamond medallion status on Delta SkyMiles. So it's a little awkward for me to say, hey, loyalty programs don't work, when I personally got on a plane and flew across the country, or at least 1,112 miles return trip, solely for the purpose of a loyalty program. Doesn't this make it obvious that loyalty programs work? And I would argue that hotels and airlines are the exception to the rule, because hotels and airlines have some very, very special traits. The first is their very, very high fixed cost and low variable cost. The cost to give out a free flight or a free hotel room is very, very negligible. Their costs are all fixed, and when that airline takes off with an empty seat, filling that seat with a body costs them next to nothing. The second problem they have is this agency problem, or it's not a problem for the airline or the hotel, but it's a sure problem for the people who buy airlines and hotels. The person who's paying for the hotel or paying for the airline is not the same person who is making the choice on which airline or hotel to choose, or the person actually doing the traveling. If there were two hotels and one was $100 and one was $200 and they're practically identical, if you're traveling for your personal basis, you would stay in the $100 hotel. But if that $200 hotel was offering you $50 cash back to you personally, and you weren't paying for the hotel, all of a sudden it's really tempting to take the $200 hotel. In the rest of the world, they call that a bribe. And that is a lot of what's going on in the travel space for loyalty programs. Most industries don't have that dynamic. And when they do, you end up with more bribes. You end up with things like pharmaceutical reps taking doctors out to dinner, or in the enterprise sales space, taking big potential enterprise clients out to the Super Bowl. Bribery absolutely works. But if you're interested in those dynamics, then loyalty programs necessarily aren't going to help you. Let's talk math and explain a bit more about why these programs all fall apart. And it's not going to be complicated math. We're going to do this really, really simply. Okay, to start with, let's take a really, really simple business. Let's say there's 20% margins on your business, 80% cost of goods sold, with a 10% loyalty discount. Your base business, every $100 spent, you make about $20. You do the loyalty program, like the buy 10, get one free, and it effectively takes 10 percentage points off your margin, which is half your margin. So now, in order to get back to your $20, you need to basically double your business. Like 2x your business. And so that just doesn't seem reasonable. And if anyone who just stops to think about it, now maybe your profit margins are higher, maybe you had 50% profit margins, but even with 50% profit margins, you still need a 20% jump in your business for your buy 10, get one free to work. And if you believe that buy 10, get one free is going to give you a 20% jump in your business or a 2x jump in your business, you're effectively saying that your price elasticity is really, really, really high. In which case, maybe instead of investing more money in a loyalty program, you just reduce your prices. Why make people jump through the hoop of actually giving the points? Now, some programs aren't buy 10, get one free. There's other loyalty programs. So like one of the other common ones is basically buy 100, get one free, right? Like give it a free point for every dollar you spent, and the points are worth like a penny. But even a program like this takes a percentage point, percentage point off of your margin. And so what does that mean? You basically need a 5% bump in your sales. And so do you really think that giving 1% back in loyalty points results in 5% incremental purchases? It's possible, but I like this baby, I am pretty skeptical. But don't worry. Even if you believe all of that, it gets worse. I was a former consultant, so I like matrices. We're going to do a 2x2 matrix, and we're going to do category spend on this side. So we're going to have high and low category spend. This is like people who spend a lot of money in the category, people who spend low amounts of money in the category. And then the x-axis, we're going to do share of wallet, and we'll do the same thing, high and low share of wallet. If you talk about which customers you care about, it's not these ones, right? Like your low category spend customers. These are if you're selling dog food, these are people who don't have dogs, and you probably don't care about them very much. You care about these high spend customers. These guys over here are your high spend category customers who are high spend with you, high percentage with you. So these are people who are buying your dog food. They're your low customers. They're awesome. But they're already spending a lot with you. These are the guys you really want, right? So they're high spend category customers are spending a lot on dog food, but they aren't spending with you. These are your competitors' customers. These are the ones you want to accumulate more of their spend. But the problem is, what does your loyalty program do? It picks up these guys, the guys who are already spending high with you. And so you're kind of left with a challenge. Like in the perfect world, you get these guys to go and sign up for your program. It'd be the equivalent of like if Walgreens launched a loyalty program, they want to get their signups to happen in the parking lot of Rite Aid. Unfortunately, Rite Aid is not going to facilitate that. And so you kind of have a challenge where if you want your loyalty program to be successful, you either need to get low category spenders to spend a lot more in the category, basically get the people who aren't buying dog food to start buying dogs so that they can buy your dog food. You can take the high share of wallet spend, people who are buying dog food and spending a lot buying your dog food, but you didn't get them to buy a lot more dog food. So I don't know how you do that. You get them to buy more dogs or like throw more dog food away. You can only buy so much of the category that you're in. Shifting category spend is a lot harder than shifting share, but you can shift share. So find customers who are loyal to your competitors and switch over to you. So you have to do, those are your options, right? You have to do one of those three things, which is why I am continuing to be skeptical. And even if you do number three, that doesn't sound so much like a loyalty program, so much as a customer acquisition program. Double jeopardy. Double jeopardy is a very, very important marketing concept that many marketers are unaware of. It was created by this guy, or at least popularized by this guy, Byron Sharp. He wrote about it in How Brands Grow, which if you have not read and internalized, I recommend you do if you're all in the marketing space. Here's what he says. He says, double jeopardy is an empirical law in marketing where, with few exceptions, the lower market share brands in a market have both far fewer buyers in a time period, but also lower brand loyalty. So it's worth clarifying that a little bit. It means that the brands that have lots of customers also have customers that are loyal, or at least a higher percentage of overall purchases. The brands that have lower percentage of customers also have customers who are less loyal. The two of them go together. Now, there are some exceptions. So one exception is private label. Kirkland's brand, for example, in Costco, tends to have a low category, and at least national penetration, but a high loyalty. Hispanic television, the same thing, low overall penetration, but high loyalty among the people who watch it. Seasonal chocolate is another example. So all of these are kind of exceptions that prove the rule, and I'll leave it to the listeners to kind of think a little bit about why those are exceptions. But exceptions are rare. Even like brands that you think about that people are like passionate about and love, like this one, they don't break the rule. And so here is, again, from Byron Sharp, by brand for smartphones. Yes, Apple is extremely loyal customers. 92% of people who have an Apple phone intend to repurchase for their next purchase. But they also have the highest market share in the smartphone space. So as long as you categorize your category the right way, you find these patterns repeat over and over again, where the brands that have the highest penetration also have the highest purchase intent. And so if you can focus on acquiring more customers, you kind of get loyalty for free. Okay, if that's the case, then the point of this presentation was that loyalty is not about loyalty. So what does work? Where is the value in loyalty programs? Well, this is one. This is Nectar. So Nectar is a coalition loyalty program in the UK. The US doesn't really have coalition loyalty programs, but they're big around the world. And Nectar was one of the first. So what Nectar does is it signs up a grocery store, it signs up a gas station or a petrol, it signs up a drugstore, a hardware store, an ophthalmologist's store, a home and garden store, a travel company. So it signs them all up, and they're in this giant coalition. And you can earn points with your Nectar card across the entire coalition, and you can use those points to buy products across the entire coalition. The beauty of the Nectar program is that when customers sign up one place, they can earn those points in other places. So it's not quite like Walgreens signing up customers at Rite Aid, but it's at least not Walgreens signing up customers at Walgreens. It's Walgreens signing up customers at Kroger or at Home Depot or at with Expedia. And so once you get the customers signed up within that network, you can kind of cross-sell them across these different businesses. And there's a bunch of them that have done this. So like in Canada, there's Air Miles. In Germany, it's Payback. Japan has 3 of them. Ponta is one of the 3 in Japan. Club Premier in Italy. So these are all called like coalition loyalty programs, but they're not really about loyalty. They're about customer acquisition and finding a group of partners to work together to effectively cross-sell their customers to each other. The other loyalty program that I'm very, very excited about that I think is really, really powerful is Starbucks. And people love their Starbucks loyalty program. But Starbucks is also special in a number of different ways. So the first one is low COGS. So unlike the retailers that have 20% margins or 50% margins or 10% margins, Starbucks has a 90% margin on their coffee. The coffee is effectively free. They can give away the coffee. The coffee doesn't cost them anything. Their costs are in fixed costs in retail and in labor. Sounds an awful like a hotel or an airline. But it's not done there. So Starbucks doesn't really have the agency problem advantage that airlines and hotels do. But what they do have is stored value. And so people in order to use the Starbucks program, they very much encourage you to put money onto your Starbucks card or Starbucks app and then spend through the card or spend through the app. And it's Starbucks payment app is actually the most successful, the highest flow through of any payment app in the world. It's much bigger than Apple Pay, much bigger than Google Pay, much bigger than any of them, to the tune of their stored value in those cards today, as of now, is roughly $1.6 billion. That is how much money people have put on their cards that they have not yet used on Starbucks, and that number is going up. That money is just a free loan to Starbucks. And if you look at what Starbucks is paying on their additional loans, it's not the only loan Starbucks has. They have like financial loans. If they wanted to go and just like go to the financial markets and borrow, that would cost them roughly $40 million a year. So effectively, Starbucks' loyalty program is just making them $40 million a year in free, tax-free money. That $40 million is 7% of Starbucks' profit last year. Their loyalty program gives back 8%. So it's effectively buy 12, get one free, roughly. But remember, Starbucks has 90% profit margins. So that 8% means that it's costing them roughly 0.8%. So if everybody used and was fully utilizing their loyalty program, it's costing Starbucks 0.8% of their profit. But they're making 7%. So basically an order of magnitude more on financial services, on their free loans. But we're not done yet. The third value Starbucks is getting is breakage. And so of all of the loyalty programs, of all the credit people put into their account, Starbucks' extremely conservative accountants are writing off 10% of that. They think that 10% of all the money put in is just gone. People forget about it or lose their account, or it's gone forever. Which means that's just money that drops into Starbucks' lap. That's 10%. So 10% of that $1.6 billion, $160 million, 20% of Starbucks' profit last year is just free money that people are just giving to Starbucks and not getting anything really in return. And that's not even including the fact that, hey, Starbucks is also saving on credit card fees. Small transaction fees are more expensive when you're working with credit card companies than larger transactions. So it's much more valuable for Starbucks to have you drop $20 on their payment app than it is to have you buy $21 coffees or $6 coffees or whatever it costs in Starbucks these days. And so hey, let's talk about some takeaways, and then I'll have some time for some questions. To me, the first thing is to think about is that yes, acquiring customers is very expensive. It's very hard. It's the hardest thing you're ever going to have to do in your business, and I just don't get distracted from that. That is the most important thing. You need to figure out a way to acquire customers. Why am I talking to you today? Because I want to get more people involved in understanding my brand around marketing BS. And it's hard. It's hard to find new customers for your business. So don't get distracted by almost anything else. Number two is keeping customers is cheap. Harvard Business Review was right about that. Holding on to a customer is much easier than acquiring a new customer. But that doesn't mean that you should spend all your resources on keeping customers, because keeping more customers is actually really expensive. One of the biggest problems in business, not just in loyalties, but all over the place, is that people go and do a bunch of activities and then then use those activities to claim credit for stuff that was going to happen anyway. And that's a lot of what retention and loyalty does. Is these are customers that most of your customers that have stuck around with you for any period of time are doing it because they like your product in some way. Maybe your product's convenient, maybe it meets their needs for whatever the reason. They're going to do it whether or not you start offering them a loyalty program. So if you offer a loyalty program, you're trying to shift the marginal customer who is like, hey, I was sticking around, but I'm almost ready to leave, but this program you're giving me is just enough to put me over the edge. But the problem is you're bribing all of your customers, all of your most loyal customers, in order to just find those few people who are on the margin. And the economics just ends up not working. And if you do more customer acquisition activities, it will also increase your loyalty for free. When Apple runs an ad for iPhone, yes, part of it's about a big part of it is trying to get new customers to go and buy the iPhone. But a big part of it takes people who are already on the iPhone and makes them more likely to repurchase an iPhone the next time they buy. So your ads that try to get new customers will also help retain your existing customers. And number 5, just because it says loyalty on the box doesn't mean it's loyalty in the box. Just by calling something doesn't mean it's going to do that thing. And too often we fall for that. Nectar's loyalty program is not about loyalty. Nectar's loyalty program is about customer acquisition. And so when you look at what other people are doing and point to them and saying, hey, they're running a loyalty program, just try not to be too fooled by thinking that just because they're calling it that, that's not what the actual driver is. Thank you. I know some of you joined late. I think the video will be up there afterwards. I left plenty of time, like roughly 10 minutes or so. We can go through some questions. My one pitch is I talk about this stuff every week. I have a free newsletter I send out every Tuesday morning where I do a deep dive on some marketing related topic that's happening right now. And I try to point out where the flaws are in the thinking and what a good kind of, I call it a third way marketer, someone who's not being trapped in just brand marketing and performance marketing, but is willing to kind of look at both, how they should be thinking about the problem. And I'd love to have more people kind of join our tribe. And then I'll talk, the one I last did this week was kind of the same way, the same thought around how do we grow your personal careers, and how a lot of the recommendations and advice on how to grow your career in marketing are wrong. And so I wrote a fairly long strategy paper on how to accelerate your marketing career through to the executive ranks, as well as like how to negotiate a salary and negotiate an offer at each step of the way to kind of get leverage to get get you to $1 million a year in compensation at a traditional job, which I think is absolutely possible for marketers if they position their career and kind of do the right thing. That's what I have. I love to hear some chats with folks, get some questions from folk. I know there's not a ton of people watching this thing live, but if you guys, any of you have questions, happy to dive in and answer them. I know sitting in and you just type it in the chat. I know sitting in these presentations and listening to them it can be long, can be a long day, and a little bit of interaction can kind of make it worthwhile. I know that if since I'm here live, I can answer your questions in a way that you get something more out of this than you wouldn't out of watching. I like to say if it's not live, I'm competing with Netflix, but I'm here live, so happy to take your questions. And just go ahead and type them in. And if not, I'll try to just keep I'll keep blathering on a little bit. Ernest is asking, we are formulating a rewards program that incentivizes our users to do things we want them to do, like move a scooter where we need it to be. So you can absolutely use loyalty program. So incentives work. They often don't work as well as we hope or as we expect, but they definitely work. It's worth thinking about, hey, what do you want to have? So what I would suggest to you, Ernest, is to reformulate your question. So rather than focusing on, hey, how do we create a rewards program that incentivizes our users to do the things we want them to do? Think about, how do we incentivize our users to do what we want them to do? And a rewards program could be a way of doing that. But I think I would challenge you to open up the breadth of ways that you can incentivize them. Especially because an incentive program is effective. A loyalty program is effectively a cash backy type program. Now, if you can leverage a loyalty program to do something different that's other than money, that's also really powerful. So some of the best loyalty programs aren't about loyalty. They aren't about points, and they aren't about money. They're about status. And status can be actually really, really effective in incentivizing people to do things. There's a fantastic blog post called, you can Google it, called Status as a Service, that talks about building social networks and how TikTok, for example, produces crazy amounts of content, and most of the content is garbage. But there's all these people creating content for TikTok that TikTok is then exposing people and monetizing, and TikTok's not paying those people at all. What they are is they're paying them in status. And so, if you can find a way to create to reward your customers in status, then that's a way that you can do it without having to pay them. A friend of mine founded Urban Spoon back in the day, and he basically built his whole SEO strategy on giving status to people who link to him, creating these top lists of the best food bloggers, and effectively a good blogger was someone who was linking to Urban Spoon. And so if you want to get people to charge, give them if they want to retrieve the scooters, giving them some money for doing that is absolutely reasonable. The question is, hey, what's the elasticity of giving them credits for your scooters versus just giving them money? And you can A/B test that to find out. The one challenge with any sort of complicated loyalty program is you have a bunch of fixed costs related to the program beyond just the money that you're giving them. Like Expedia, when I inherited the program I found out it was costing us about 1.2 cents to give out 1 penny worth of discount. And so when you're in a model like that, I guarantee the users would appreciate a penny more than they appreciate a penny worth of points. And so figure out if your ride credits, what they're actually costing you, and what the consumer is valuing them at. Okay, Trevor, are there any other tools as strong as loyalty programs for customer retention that you've recognized? Again, a lot of it depends on what you define as a loyalty program. I think one of I talked about status before. So status is extremely valuable. Once you built up status on a certain network within a certain group, within a certain company, people are like, there's people don't like losing that status, and they want to keep it. And so that offers as a real good retention, right? Like if you built up a really big following on Twitter, you're not going to leave Twitter for a new network because you've already built up your status in the one place. Subscription programs are a bit like that too. So subscription programs tend to be really, really sticky. Classmates.com is a company that still exists, which is crazy, right? So Classmates.com's whole business model was pay me so I can give you access to your high school friends. Well, Facebook came along and offered that for free, and yet Classmates still exists because people have subscribed to Classmates and then never unsubscribed. And so really, really powerful. Amazon Prime is the best loyalty program, I think, in the world right now. The other thing I'll talk about for retention, so less about loyalty than about just retention. So there's save desks, for example, that a lot of the telecom companies use. So someone tries to cancel their service, they put you through to a specialized desk that helps you not cancel your service. Those programs also work. I don't know if I'd call them loyalty or not. They're painful and they're ugly, but they definitely work. And I'd say that the best way to do customer retention is to get way ahead of it upstream. And so depending on where you acquire your customers, some of your marketing channels are going to have more loyal customers than others. And so focusing more of your marketing dollars on those long-term value customers is going to do more for your retention than worrying about things after the fact down the line. Also onboarding. So if you can onboard your customers in a better way, that tends to dramatically affect your retention numbers. But the challenges in most companies, the people in charge of onboarding and the people in charge of retention are two different groups. And so we underinvest in onboarding because we don't see the retention value when we do it. A company like Superhuman, for example, on email is a great job of onboarding, and they've created an incredibly sticky product that nobody leaves. And so investing in onboarding or other early cross-sell and upsell. If your first purchase has multiple products in it, your retention with that business tends to be much higher than if it only has a single product. So if you can do a cross-sell on that first purchase, even if you lose money on that first purchase, or dramatically improve your customer service on the first purchase, so your CEO is calling everybody on the first purchase, those types of things have great impact on your long-term retention, even though we don't traditionally call them loyalty or retention programs. All right, I think I'm coming very close to the ending. I'm going to get cut off here any second. For more on this, if you subscribe to Marketing BS on Substack and just reply to the message, I respond to every single email I get. There's roughly 19,000 marketers on my list right now, but most people don't write me. So I currently have time to respond anytime somebody writes. I don't always do it the same day, but I definitely do it. So thank you everybody for your time here today, and I'm glad people are finding it helpful.